Hello friends, welcome to State Engineering Service examination section of Winds of Change. We will cover so many questions from the civil engineering topic here from Expert IES. You may contact us at windsoftchange2020@gmail.com, and for the study material you can download from the link given in the description box. You can subscribe to this channel to stay updated for more videos. You may like these videos if you feel useful for you and comment for any feedback. Welcome to 100 questions of soil mechanics and foundation engineering. In this portion, we will cover 100 questions in two parts of 50 questions each. These will be explained by Expert IES. This is the first video in which we will cover question number 1 to 50. We will take time on each question so that you can understand the question, you can memorize the question in your mind, and you can memorize the solution or the answer also. So let's begin. First question. Rise of water table above the ground surface causes. Rise of water table above the ground surface. What is the effect of this in the soil? Equal increase in pore water pressure and total stress. Equal decrease in pore water pressure and total stress. Increase in pore water pressure but decrease in total stress, or decrease in pore water pressure but increase in total stress. Just think about it. If the water table is above the ground surface, then what will be the changes that you will observe? Which will change, which will not change? We have to observe here. So let's see the answer. It is option A, that is equal increase in the pore water pressure and total stress. But there will be no change in effective stress. Okay. How it is so? If the water table, let's say water table initially it was at this level, and now it has reached this level, so the change in the pore water pressure will occur because of this much. That is, let's say this is 3 meter, so it will be 3 into, let's say unit weight of water is 10, so it will be 3 into 10, that is 30 kilonewton per meter square will be this change in the pore water pressure, and this will add to the total stress, while the effective stress, that is the difference of total stress and pore water pressure, that will remain constant. Okay, got the concept? Moving on to next question. The hydrometer method of sedimentation analysis differs from pipette analysis method mainly in the principle of the test, the method of taking observations, the method of preparation of soil suspension, or all of the above. Now the hydrometer analysis of sedimentation and the pipette analysis, these are the two methods of analysis of sedimentation. Mainly they differ in, just think about it, they will differ in the method of taking observation. These two methods are defined here. This is the hydrometer analysis method. Now what is this method? In this method you can see here that the soil is placed as a suspension in a jar filled with the distilled water to which the deflocculating agent is added. Now in this, when we add deflocculating agent like sodium hexametaphosphate, this is generally used for as a dispersing agent, and now the soil particles are allowed to settle from a suspension. The decreasing density of the suspension is measured at various time intervals. Now through this analysis we will determine the particle size distribution also. This is the sedimentation analysis of the hydrometer method. Okay, I have taken this picture somewhere from the internet. And the pipette method. In this pipette method, we are having a 10 ml pipette in the 100 ml of the water in 1 liter flask. Now we mix 50 gram of dry soil in 1 liter of the water and put into 1 liter graduated cylinder. Now we will shake it, we will mix water, and we will allow for the settling. So through this we do the particle size distribution analysis also. Okay, so these two are the methods of taking observation. They differ in this manner. Moving on to next question. The effect of cohesion on the soil is 2. The effect of cohesion on soil. What will be the effect? We have 4 options. Reduce both the active earth pressure intensity and passive earth pressure intensity. What will be the effect of cohesion on active and passive earth pressure intensity? We should find it out here. Increase both active earth pressure intensity and passive earth pressure intensity. Reduce the active earth pressure intensity but to increase the passive earth pressure intensity, and increase active earth pressure intensity and reduce passive earth pressure intensity. what will be the effect of cohesion on active as well as passive earth pressure? Let's find it out. Answer will be option C. That is, it will reduce the active earth pressure intensity but increase the passive earth pressure intensity. So the cohesion will help to reduce active earth pressure. The active earth pressure will be away from the wall, and because of the cohesion the particles will stick to each other because of the presence of cohesion. So that is why the active pressure can be reduced, but it will increase the passive earth pressure intensity because of the better packing of the particles of soil. Okay, so moving on to next question. In a consolidated drain test on a normally consolidated clay, the volume of the soil sampled during shear decreases, increases, remains unchanged, or first increase then decreases. We are talking about consolidated drain test. Consolidated drain test, in both the stages, the water is allowed to flow out and the volume is allowed to change. So on the normally consolidated clay, what will be the effect of it? How the volume will change? So the volume will decrease. How it will be? Let's see here. On the application of the confining pressure, we can see here that in the triaxial test, the volume change observed will be decreasing one in the compression zone. Okay, with respect to time, we will observe this graph. Okay, this is for the normally consolidated clay. While in case of the deviator stress, we will also observe here a decrease in volume with respect to axial strain for the normally consolidated clay. These graphs are important and we should memorize it. They are important for any of the examination in which you must be appearing. Okay, moving further. Next question, which of the following statement is correct? First statement, uniformity coefficient represents the shape of the particle size distribution curve. Second, for a well-graded soil, both uniformity coefficient and coefficient of curvature are nearly unity. What's this sentence? What it is saying? Cu and Cc, both values are 1 for well-graded soil. Third statement, a soil is said to be well-graded if it has most of the particles of about same size. If the most of the particles are of same size, they are saying that it is well-graded, or none of the above. So which statement is correct? Just think about it. Okay, starting from the first sentence, first of all, uniformity coefficient represents the shape of the particle size distribution curve. Uniformity coefficient defines us about the particle size distribution. It doesn't tell about the shape of the particle. Okay, so uniformity coefficient, if this value is more, that is lying from 4 to 6, it will be having a well-graded soil. For a well-graded soil, both uniformity coefficient and coefficient curvature are nearly unity, which is absolutely incorrect. For well-graded soil, uniformity coefficient lies from 4 to 6 and coefficient of curvature lies from 1 to 3. A soil is said to be well-graded if it has most of the particle of size about same size. Okay, so this is also incorrect statement because well-graded soil should have the particle size of different, they should have the different size, so that the proper packing can occur for the well-graded soil. So all of the above are the incorrect statement. So answer will be D. Okay, what I have said, that higher value of Cu indicate that the soil mass consists of the soil particles with different size ranges, and for a well-graded soil, Cu is 4 or 6 and Cc value is 1 to 3. Okay, so this is important, this is very important question and we should memorize it, all these values also. For well-graded soil, Cu value, that is coefficient of uniformity, lies from 4 to 6 and coefficient curvature lies from 1 to 3. Next question, shear strength of the soil is unique function of effective stress only, total stress only, both effective stress and total stress, or none of the above. Just think about it. Shear strength of the soil, formula for it, can you memorize the formula here? Tau equal to C plus sigma tan phi, remember? So in that the sigma was effective stress. Okay, so the answer will be option A, that is it is a function of effective stress only, C plus sigma tan phi. Got it? Next question, if the degree of saturation of a partially saturated soil is 60%, then the air content of the soil is. This is very easy question. 40%, 60%, 80% or 100%. Just think about it. If the degree of saturation of the partially saturated soil is 60%, remember the formula for degree of saturation? It is volume of water upon volume of void, and air content formula is volume of air upon volume of void, and volume of void is consisting of volume of air and volume of water. So sum of the both should be 100. Got the concept? So the degree of saturation of partially saturated soil, if it is 60%, then the air content should be 100 minus 60, that is 40%. So answer A will be the correct answer. Okay. Whatever I have said, you can watch here. Degree of saturation is volume of water upon volume of void into 100, and air content is volume of air upon volume of void, and volume of void is sum of volume of air and volume of water. Got it? Can we move further? Okay, next question. Water content of soil can never be greater than 100%, takes values only from 0% to 100%, be less than 0%, or be greater than 100%. So water content of the soil, just think about it. Water content can be greater than 100%. What is the formula of water content? Think about it. Formula for water content, that is weight of water upon weight of solid. If weight of water is equal to weight of solid, then it will be 100%. If it is weight of water becomes more than weight of solid, then there is also a possibility that can occur. So it can be greater than 100%. Obviously, it takes value only from 0% to 100%. Obviously, it is not. It can go beyond 100%. It can be less than 0%, which is also not possible. Weight of water can never be in negative term. Okay, can be greater than 100%, which will be the correct one, which we have already discussed. So answer D will be the correct answer. Okay. So water content or moisture content, the water content is defined as the ratio of the mass of water to the mass of the soil, which we have discussed, weight of water upon weight of soil into 100. Got it? Next question. Compressibility of the sandy soil is, let's see the options, almost equal to that of clay soil. Compressibility of sandy soil is almost equal to clay soil, or much greater than that of clay soil, or much less than that of clay soil, or none of the above. There must be possible cases in these three only. Obviously none of the above cannot be the answer. Now compressibility of sandy soil, just think about it, which one will be having more voids, either sandy soil or clay soil? The sandy soil, the particle size are well graded, usually in a higher size. So there will be less possibility that there can be higher compression. But in case of the clay soil, there is a lot of possibility that there can be more compressible soil. With application of pressure, it can vary in its volume, which is the definition of compressibility. So it will be much less than the clay soil. Okay. Compressibility is the extent to which the volume decrease on the application of load. Now compressibility of sandy soil is much less than that of the clay soil. This can be understood by considering the difference in the size of the individual particles of soil. If there is bigger size, larger size, then there will be less possibility of the compression. While if we are having the lower size, then there will be the more possibility of the compression. So let's move further. 10th question. A fully saturated soil is said to be one-phase system, two-phase system with soil and air, two-phase system with soil and water, or three-phase system. This is very easy question and very probable question also for any of the examination. One-phase system means there will be only a single particle, either water or solid or air. Two-phase system means there will be two things, either soil or air, or either soil or water. So we are talking about fully saturated soil. Fully saturated soil will contain solid and water. So it will be two-phase system of soil and water. Okay. Option C will be the correct answer. You can see here. It looks like this. This is the solid portion. This is the water portion. And we are not having any air content in it because it is fully saturated soil. Okay. Next question. Terjagi's theory of one-dimensional consolidation assumes soil is homogeneous and fully saturated. Water and soil particles are incompressible. Deformation of the soil is entirely due to change in volume, or all of the above. Memorize it. Terjagi's theory of one-dimensional consolidation. There were some assumptions before you started reading the Terjagi's theory. There was some assumption. Recall it because those assumptions are very important to memorize. Think about it. Which are the correct statement? Soil is homogeneous and fully saturated. It is correct statement. This was an assumption in Terjagi. Water and soil particles are incompressible, which is also the correct statement because we take ideal condition. Deformation of the soil is entirely due to change in volume, which was also an correct statement. Because of the change in volume only we take the deformation. Okay, so all of the above were the correct answer. So Terjagi's theory of one-dimensional consolidation assumes all these statements. Memorize it. These are very important. Moving further, pick up the correct statement from the following. The dry density reduces by addition of water after attaining optimum moisture content. I am reading it again. The dry density, that is rho d, reduces by addition of water after attaining optimum moisture content. Can you memorize the graph of optimum moisture content? I think it is the right statement because in the graph the peak point was at optimum moisture content. Dry density was maximum at optimum moisture content, and after that if we increase the water content then the dry density will reduces. So it should be a correct statement. Now the line joining the peak of the three moisture content graph obtained by using three compactive energies is called line of Optimus. Line of Optimus. The definition of line of Optimus is as has been defined here. The line joining the peak of three moisture content graph. There were so many moisture content graphs, and if we join them, then the line obtained is called line of Optimus. This is a properly correct statement. Now, well-graded coarse-grained soil can be compacted to a very high density as compared to the fine-grained soil. This is also a correct statement because the particle size are larger, they are bigger. If we do the compaction, the smaller size particle will be settled up in the voids that is between these bigger size particles. Okay, so a high density can be achieved in case of the coarse grained soil as compared to the fine grained soil. So all of the above will be the correct statement here. Option D will be the correct answer. And you can see the graph here for this. This is the optimum moisture content. We increase the compactive effort, so the graph will shift to the higher dry density. And if we join the peak of these lines, like this, if we join the peak, then this line is called line of Optimus. Okay, if there are so many graphs, another graph like this, another graph like this, okay, so then this line is called line of Optimus. Okay, next question. Pick up the correct statement from the following. The object of classifying soil is to arrange them into groups according to their properties and behavior. Once again, I am reading it. Focus on this statement. Object of classifying soil is to arrange them into groups according to their properties and behavior. I think they are telling us about the definition of classification of soil, which is we arrange them according to their properties and behavior only. So this statement is absolutely correct. Now, a soil classification system is meant to provide an accepted and systematic method of describing the various types of soil, eliminating personal factors. So we are getting an accepted and systematic method of classification in which we describe the various types of soil and we eliminate the personal factors, which is also correct statement. Now, first category of the soil classification is based on the grain size of the soil. So particle size distribution, which is the first category, this is also correct statement. The first category is the particle size distribution only. So all of the above are the correct statement. Option D will be the correct one, and all these definitions are important. We should memorize it. Okay. Next question. Coefficient of compressibility is, just think about it. Coefficient of compressibility is constant for any type of soil, or it will vary for different type of soil, different for different type of soils, and also different for a soil under different state of consolidation. or different for different type of soil but same for soil under different state of consolidation, or independent of the type of soil but dependent on the stress history of the soil. Just think about it, coefficient of compressibility, its dependency. Okay, so the answer is option B, that is coefficient of compressibility is different for different type of soil, which is first of all the correct statement, because the soil properties are different, so their compressibility will be different, their gradation will be different, and also different for a soil under different state of consolidation. Got it? Consolidation means the release of the pore water pressure from the inside of the soil. Now, if it is under different state of consolidation, then the coefficient of compressibility will be different. There will be different voids present in it, and at different stages of the void, stress will be different. So, coefficient of compressibility is different for different state of consolidation. Okay, and what is the definition of coefficient of compressibility? It is AV. It is the slope of the void ratio pressure curve when both are plotted on the arithmetic scale. Okay, and if these are plotted on the logarithmic scale, then what will it become? That is delta E upon log of delta sigma 1 upon delta sigma 2. What will be that condition? It will be of the compression index. Now here we are talking about the coefficient of compressibility, which is delta E upon delta sigma. Memorize it, it is important. Next question, coefficient of consolidation. In the previous question we discussed about coefficient of compressibility. Now we are discussing coefficient of consolidation. For clay normally decreases with increase in liquid limit, increases with increase in liquid limit, first increases then decreases with increase in liquid limit, or remains constant at all liquid limits. So we should know the relation of coefficient of consolidation with liquid limit. Think about it. Coefficient of consolidation, the answer is decreases with increase in liquid limit. Okay, now how it will be there? First of all, this coefficient of consolidation, the formula of CV, that is coefficient of consolidation, is K 1 plus E upon AV gamma W. Okay, where this AV is the, we have already discussed, coefficient of compressibility, and K is the permeability, E is the void ratio. So it will depend upon the permeability, and permeability depends upon the water content. So there will be an inverse relation which will be observed here. But before understanding it further, we should go in the depth of the definition of it. First of all, coefficient of consolidation is defined as the parameter used to measure the rate at which the saturated clay or soil undergoes compaction or consolidation when they are subjected to an increase in the pressure. Okay, and as the liquid limit increases, the permeability of soil decreases. With increase in liquid limit, now we have to understand it, with increase in liquid limit, the permeability will decrease. And we know the coefficient of consolidation is directly proportional to the permeability, which is given here. So coefficient of consolidation will also decrease, and vice versa will occur. Okay, so since it is dependent upon the permeability of the soil, and permeability is inversely proportional to the liquid limit, it is in the inverse relation to the liquid limit, so obviously coefficient of consolidation will decrease with increase in liquid limit. Okay, got the concept? Let's move further. Select the incorrect statement. In a direct shear box test, the plane of shear failure is predetermined. Yeah, it is possible, because plane of shear is mostly predetermined. We have already seen it in the direct shear test. At the 45 degree there was a failure plane. Better control is achieved on the drainage of the soil in a triaxial compression test, which is also correct statement. Now stress distribution on the failure plane in case of the triaxial compression test is uniform. Can we say about it? Just think about it. Unconfined compression test can be carried out on all types of soil. So the answer is, that is the incorrect statement is option D. That is unconfined compression test can be performed on all types of soil, which is incorrect statement, because unconfined compression test is used primarily for the saturated cohesive soils. Got it? Why it is so? Unconfined compression test is being done in which only the axial compression is being applied on a cylindrical sample. And cylindrical sample, how it can be formed? It can be only formed when there is a cohesion in it. It cannot be formed for a sandy soil. Water, the soil will not stay like a cylindrical mold. Okay, so it can only be done for the cohesive soil. So that is why we are saying here that the unconfined compression test can be carried out only on the saturated cohesive soil. Now stress distribution on the failure plane in case of the triaxial compression test is uniform, which we should memorize because we take sigma 3 value, that is the cell pressure is uniform throughout the soil. We can see here also sigma 3 value is uniform from all sides, okay, and sigma 1 is applied from the top in the triaxial compression test. This is the sample. Next question, select the correct statement. A uniform soil has more strength and stability than a non-uniform soil. A uniform soil has less strength and stability than a non-uniform soil. The uniformity coefficient does not affect the strength and stability. A uniformity coefficient of a poorly graded soil is more than that of a well-graded soil. Just think about it. It is a very important question. Which one is correct? There are more incorrect statements. Only one is correct. The uniform soil has more strength and stability than non-uniform soil. What is uniform soil? Uniform soil is having a particle size of same range. So obviously there will be lesser strength, okay, than non-uniform soil. So this statement must be correct. Let's see the statement about uniformity coefficient. Uniformity coefficient does not affect the strength and stability, which is an incorrect statement. Obviously it will affect because it tells us about the gradation of the soil, and gradation is directly related to the stability as well as the strength. Now uniformity coefficient of poorly graded soil is more than that of a well graded soil, which is absolutely absurd statement because well graded soil will be having more strength and stability, and so obviously the uniformity coefficient value will be more. There for a well graded soil this value lies from 4 to 6, while for the poorly graded soil it will vary from 1 to 4. So uniformity coefficient is more for the well graded soil. So the answer here, which we have already discussed, that is B will be the correct statement. Okay, this is the well graded soil of different particle size. This is uniformly graded where we are having all the particles of same size range. This is the gap graded particles in which there is a gap of a particular size of the particle. Understand this concept also, it is very important to keep in your mind. So next question, select the incorrect statement. Bearing capacity of a soil depends upon the amount and direction of the load. Is it so? Just think about it. Bearing capacity of the soil depend on the type of the soil. Bearing capacity of a soil depend upon the shape and size of the footing. Bearing capacity of a soil is independent of the rate of loading. Just think about it. Bearing capacity of the soil. The formula for the bearing capacity, that is the Terzaghi formula. Just memorize it in your mind and think about it. What does it contain? It contains type of soil because there the density is being mentioned here, the cohesion is being mentioned here. If it is cohesive soil, then only the CNC will be applicable. CNC plus QNQ plus 0.5 gamma BN gamma, in that formula CNC will be applicable only when it is a cohesive soil. So it will depend upon the soil type, which is correct statement. Bearing capacity of soil depend upon the shape and size of the footing. You have seen the third term in the bearing capacity formula, that is 0.5 gamma BN gamma, where B is the width of the footing. So it is also correct statement. Bearing capacity of the soil is independent of the rate of loading, and bearing capacity of the soil depend upon the amount and direction of the load. These are opposite statement to each other, and there is no role of load in the bearing capacity of the soil because bearing capacity of the soil is the entirely property of the soil. It depends entirely on the property of the soil. You can see here option A will be the incorrect statement first of all, okay, because it is independent of the loading. In this first term is for the shear strength for the cohesive soil. This is because of the surcharge, and this is soil self weight. These three are the terms which are defining the bearing capacity of the soil. So it does not contain any direction of the load or amount of the load that is applied on the soil. Okay, so got the concept here. Next question, Select the correct statement. Coefficient of compressibility of an over consolidated clay is less than that of normally consolidated clay. Think about it. Coefficient of compressibility, that is AV. We are talking about AV here. Coefficient of compressibility, the formula is delta E upon delta sigma. Now coefficient of compressibility of over consolidated clay is less than that of normally consolidated clay. Just memorize the graph of that stress history and everything which you may remember in your mind. Coefficient of compressibility of an over consolidated clay is greater than that of normally consolidated clay, or coefficient of compressibility is constant for any clay or none of the above. So it will not be constant obviously, but for which type of soil, either for normally consolidated or over consolidated, for which condition this coefficient of compressibility will be more. Now coefficient of compressibility is the slope of the graph that will be obtained between delta E and delta sigma. Now for over consolidated clay and for normally consolidated clay, if you see at the graph, you will find out that this value, that is coefficient of compressibility of over consolidated clay, is less than that of normally consolidated clay. How it is so? Let's see here. This is for normally consolidated clay and this is for over consolidated clay, this graph in the stress history. Okay, this is the reloading and this is the stress history curve, and this is for over consolidated clay. So here if you obtain this slope is lesser and this slope is higher between E and log of sigma. So you can see here this slope is more, so obviously the coefficient of compressibility of normally consolidated clay will be more than that of the over consolidated clay. Okay, so the answer A will be the correct one. What is coefficient of compressibility? It is the ratio of the change in void ratio to change in the effective stress. Okay, got the point here? Moving on to next question. Select the incorrect statement. Cohesion of a soil can have a negative value. Is it possible? Can the cohesion have a negative value? Let's see. Effective angle of internal friction for coarse grained soil is rarely below 30 degree. Just think about it. For coarse grained soil, effective angle of internal friction is rarely below 30 degree. And effective angle of internal friction for soil increases as state of compactness increases. Is it true? Let's find it out. And effective angle of internal friction is a complicated function of mineralogy and clay size content. So this statement, effective angle of internal friction, this is correct one, because angle of internal friction is a function of mineralogy and clay size content only, and effective angle of internal friction for a soil increases as state of compactness increases. As much as the soil will be compact, obviously angle of repose will be more. You can see at the slope stability condition, more will be the angle of repose, more will be the compactness, and there will be more will be the angle of phi, that is angle of internal friction. So this is also correct statement. This one is correct, this one is correct. Now effective angle of internal friction for coarse grained soil is rarely below 30 degree. Usually the value for this varies above 30 degree only. So obviously it is more than 30 degree. It is also correct statement. Cohesion of a soil can have a negative value. There is no meaning of negative value here. Cohesion for sand, that is cohesion less soil, which we call that is having no cohesion, for that the minimum value, that is 0. There cannot be a possibility of a negative value. So this statement is wrong. This is incorrect statement. So answer will be option A. Okay. The slope of most piles of loose dry grains of natural soils are in the range of 28 degree to 34 degree. A pile of angular gravel sized grains can attain stable slope angle up to 45 degree. Okay, so this value usually is not below 30 degree, usually it is above 30 degree only. Okay, so let's see the next question. Select the correct statement. The greater the viscosity, greater is permeability. Is it true? The greater the unit weight, the greater is permeability. The greater the unit weight, the smaller is permeability, or unit weight does not affect the permeability. Now, for all these, for relation of permeability, there are two factors which is discussed here. First is viscosity, second is unit weight. Okay, and now we have to find out the relation, that permeability relation with respect to unit weight. So just think about it, which relation describes it. Have you read about it? Take your time. Okay, so this is related to the Kozny-Kármán equation. You must have read it. This equation looks like this. You may have seen it. The value of the permeability is directly proportional to G rho W and inversely proportional to the surface area of the soil particle. Mu, that is viscosity, depends upon void ratio, and it also depends upon the unit weight of water, which is composed of these two, that is G rho W, which is the unit weight of water. Okay, so you can see here that K is directly related to the unit weight. Greater the unit weight, greater will be the permeability. And viscosity, it is having inverse relation, since the first statement says that greater the viscosity, greater is permeability, which is opposite of it. Greater is the viscosity when lesser is the permeability. So this is incorrect statement. Okay, and this is the correct statement. Greater the unit weight, greater is permeability. This is incorrect statement. And weight does not affect permeability, which is also not true. You can see here unit weight is present here, so this is also incorrect here. So obviously the answer is option B. Okay, so let's move further. Question number 22. Select the correct statement. Unit weight of dry soil is greater than unit weight of wet soil. Just think about it. Unit weight of dry soil, is it greater than unit weight of wet soil? For dry soil, dry unit weight is less than total unit weight. Or unit weight of soil increases due to submergence in water, or unit weight of soil decreases due to submergence in water. So first of all, let's start with the first statement. Just think about the first statement first. Unit weight of dry soil is greater than unit weight of wet soil. Now, in the dry soil, you must be having voids. Voids, that is having air, having zero weight. In those voids, when it is in wet condition, it is filled with water. So there will be having some weight of water also. So which one will be having more unit weight? Obviously that will be the wet soil, which will be having weight of water as well as weight of solid. And in the dry soil we will be having only the weight of the solid. So obviously this statement is incorrect. Now for dry soils, dry unit weight is less than total unit weight. Now for dry soil, dry unit weight is equal to total unit weight, because the relation says that dry unit weight is equal to total unit weight upon 1 plus W, where W is the water content. Now if there is no water content, that is for the dry soil, we are talking about dry soil here, so obviously no water, W value, that is water content, will be 0. So dry unit weight equal to total unit weight. So this statement is also incorrect. Okay. Now unit weight of soil increases due to submergence in water, or unit weight of soil decreases due to submergence in water. For this phenomena, we have to understand what is unit weight. Unit weight is the force by which the gravity pulls a substance. Okay, that is the weight of the body. Weight is composed of mass into mg, that is the unit weight. Now we are having unit weight, we are having unit mass into gravity. Now since in the presence of water there will be upward flow force, that is the buoyancy force, which will decrease the value of the weight by which it is being pulled by gravity. So obviously the unit weight will decrease in the presence of the submergence of the water. Okay, so this will be incorrect, only this one will be the correct answer. Okay, so let's find out. Answer D will be the correct one here. Force of buoyancy acting upward and force of gravity acting downward. So there will be lesser unit weight in case of the submergence. Now for dry soil, dry unit weight is less than total unit weight, which I have said by this relation, that is gamma d equal to gamma upon 1 plus W, in which W is 0. So gamma d equal to gamma for this one. Unit weight of dry soil is greater than unit weight of wet soil. You can see a unit weight of dry soil is 16 to 18 and unit weight of wet soil is 19 to 21. Unit weight of wet soil is greater than unit weight of dry soil. Okay, understood? So moving further, 23rd question. A plane inclined at an angle phi to the horizontal at which the soil is expected to stay in the absence of any lateral support is known as natural slope line, repose line, phi line, or all of the above. Good question. Just focus on this question. What is being said here, that a plane is inclined at an angle of phi to the horizontal at which the soil is expected to stay in the absence of any lateral support. Okay, let's say this is a plane and it is placed at an angle of phi. Okay, this is the phi angle. Now we have to say that what it is called if there is no external force on this soil. This is the soil here. Okay, so we have to find out what will, at which this slope is being obtained. So what will be the answer here? Just think about it. Natural slope line or repose line or phi line? First of all, it will be phi line obviously because it is at the phi angle. Repose line because this is angle of repose, and natural slope line because it will lose its state, it will flow down due to the effect of the gravity if this slope is more than this. So it is natural slope line. So all of these statements are correct. All of the above will be the correct answer here. Okay, so option D will be the correct one. Now slope angle less than the angle of the repose, slope remains stable, and if the slope angle is greater than the angle of repose, then the mass wasting will occur. This will be sheared off. Okay, you can see here this phenomena. Now this plane is called natural slope line or repose line or phi line. Okay, so next question. Quicksand is a type of sand, flow condition occurring in cohesive soil, flow condition occurring in cohesionless soil, or flow condition occurring in both cohesive and cohesionless soil. It is very easy question. We all know about quicksand condition. Quicksand is not a type of sand, it is a condition. Okay, the flow condition occurring in cohesive soil, which is also incorrect, it occurs in the cohesionless soil. So this should be the correct answer. This does not occur in both cohesion and cohesionless soil, it will occur in cohesionless soil only. So answer C will be the correct one. I am reading out the quicksand condition definition. Quicksand condition occurs when the seepage pressure which acts in the upward direction overcomes the downward direction pressure due to submergence weight of soil, and the sand grains are forced apart. The result is that the soil has no capability to support a load. In this condition, the boiling condition will occur and it cannot support any load. Effective stress will become zero and a quicksand condition is observed. Okay. Next question. Time factor for a clay layer is a dimensional parameter, directly proportional to permeability of soil, inversely proportional to drainage path, or independent of thickness of clay layer. Now just think about the formula for the time factor in your mind. It is not a dimensional parameter. First of all, time factor is just a value. It is a representation. It is not a dimensional parameter. Okay, so this statement is totally wrong. Now moving to the next statement. Time factor is directly proportional to permeability of soil. Now think about it. Permeability of soil. Let's see. Inversely proportional to drainage path. It is independent of the drainage path. Okay, so there is no relation with it also. Now independent of thickness of clay layer, which is also incorrect statement. You may have memorized the formula of tau v, that is time factor, which is CVT upon H square, where CV is the coefficient of compressibility, T is the time in which the consolidation occurred, and H is the thickness of the clay layer. So it is inversely proportional to the thickness of the clay layer. So this statement is also incorrect. Only the correct statement will be directly proportional to permeability of soil. Now how it is so? Let's see it. This is the formula, that is tau v equal to CVT upon H square. In this we know that tau v is directly proportional to CV, that is coefficient of consolidation. Now CV is directly proportional to permeability. So how this relation will be observed? Tau v is directly proportional to permeability. Okay, this tau v is directly proportional to permeability. You can see here. Okay, so through this B will be the correct answer. Next question. The slope of isochrone at any point at a given time indicates the rate of change of slope of isochrone. It will indicate effective stress with time, effective stress with depth, pore water pressure with depth, or pore water pressure with time. Now what it will represent? The slope of isochrone. It will represent the pore water pressure with depth. Okay, answer C will be the correct answer. The slope of isochrone at any point at given time, it will indicate the pore water pressure with respect to depth. Okay, next question. When the degree of saturation is 0, the soil mass under consideration represents one phase system, two phase system with soil and air, two phase system with soil and water, or three phase system. Now it is been said that degree of saturation is 0. That means there will be no water content, but there will be air content in it. They have not said anything about air content, so there will be air, there will not be any water, there will be solid. So obviously it will be a two-phase system. It will not be having water, it will be having solid and air. Now answer which will be true here will be option B, that is two-phase system with soil and air. Okay, option B will be the correct one. Next question. Hydrometer reading are corrected for temperature correction, meniscus correction, dispersing agent correction, or temperature, meniscus and dispersing agent correction, all of these. Think about it. Hydrometer reading, you must have read about it. What is the correction that will be applied to the hydrometer reading? You should know here that there are three corrections which are applied to the hydrometer reading, and these three are present here. Okay, so answer will be option D, that is temperature, meniscus and dispersing agent correction. Now what are these? Let me discuss here. First of all, meniscus correction. The difference between the two reading is taken as meniscus correction, which is constant for a hydrometer, and hydrometer analysis is the most widely used technique for the analysis of the grain soil. Now dispersing agents are added in the analysis to increase the interparticle repulsion and thereby decrease the tendency of the particle fluctuating during sedimentation. This is the dispersing agent which is being added to the water or the soil so that there will be interparticle repulsion. The soil particles do not combine with each other and the flocks do not form. That is why dispersing agents are being added. Now if the hydrometer reading is taken at a temperature other than the standard temperature for the hydrometer, the reading will be in error due to the change in the volume of the hydrometer between the two temperature. With change in the temperature, the volume will change, and because of that there will be error in the reading, so that should also be corrected. Dispersing agent is added, so that is why there will be a correction, and there will be correction for the meniscus also. So there will be three corrections which will be applied in the hydrometer reading, and we should memorize these three. Okay, next question. During the first stage of the triaxial test, when the cell pressure is increased from 0.1 Newton per mm square to 0.26 Newton per meter square per mm square, the pore water pressure increases from 0.07 Newton per mm square to 0.15 Newton per mm square. Skempton's pore pressure parameter B is 0.5, minus 0.5, 2 and minus 2. And this is very easy question if you know this parameter, this formula for this parameter, that is A and B for pore water pressure. Do you remember it? Think about it. If you remember it, then this is a very easy question for you. If you don't remember, then there will be no point discussing here. I am telling you, and you have to focus on this. There will be a pore water pressure parameter, that is A and B. I am telling you, first of all, you will see the answer, that is option A, and the formula which is important here. This formula is very important, you should memorize it. This is the formula for Skempton's pore pressure parameter, that is delta U equal to B delta sigma 3 plus A delta sigma 1 minus delta sigma 3, where delta sigma 3, this is for the change in the cell pressure, and this is delta sigma 1, which is change in the effective stress comprising of cell pressure and deviated stress. Okay, so A value, this A value will be 0 since there is no deviated stress is present. This parameter is dependent on the deviated stress. Okay, so this is 0. Now what will be the formula here for this condition? Delta U equal to B delta sigma 3. Okay, and we have to determine B. So B will become delta U upon delta sigma 3. Now delta U value, that is change in the pore pressure, pore water pressure. This is from 0.07 to 0.15. So 0.05 minus 0.07 upon delta sigma 3, which is 0.26 minus 0.10 from here. So this answer which will comes out is 0.5. The value of B is 0.5. This cannot be negative because this value lies from 0 to 1. So this is 0.5 will be the correct answer here. Next question. Inorganic soils with low compressibility are represented by MH, SL, ML, CH. Very easy question, very easy question. You just have to think about it. Inorganic soil means this is represented by M. Okay, and low compressibility, so it is represented by L. So simply the answer will become ML. Okay, option C will be the correct answer. Very easy question. Organic soil is represented by M low compressibility by L, high compressibility by H, S is the silt and C is the clay. Next question. The ultimate consolidation settlement of a structure resting on a soil. The ultimate consolidation settlement, we are talking about it. Now it will decrease with increase in initial void ratio, decreases with decrease in plastic limit, increases with increase in initial void ratio, or increases with decrease in porosity of soil. So first of all, we should know the relation of ultimate consolidation settlement with these three things. It does, the porosity is not directly affected by it because it will be affected by void ratio. So there will be relation of it with void ratio or the plastic limit, but plastic limit also does not play any role in the ultimate consolidation settlement. In the formula of ultimate consolidation settlement, that is delta H upon H equal to delta E upon 1 plus E naught. Okay, in that formula there will be a term that is the void ratio that comes into the picture. Now if you focus on that formula, you will find out that, just think about it, what you will find out, what observation you will have. It will decrease with increase in the initial void ratio. Option A will be the correct answer. Now how it will be? Settlement is delta E upon 1 plus E naught into H. Now delta E, this delta E equal to E2 minus E1. I think it should be written as E2 minus E naught, which was written here. This is the initial void ratio. Got it? This initial void ratio. Now with respect to initial void, if this value increases, then settlement will decrease from this, and even this comes into the numerator also, E2 minus E naught or E1 minus E naught, whatever it will be, E2 minus E naught. So in that, this is also in the minus sign, so it will also, with increase in this initial void ratio, this term will decrease. Okay, so you can easily find out that the ultimate consolidation settlement of structure resting on the soil decreases with increase in initial void ratio. Okay, next question. The coefficient of active earth pressure for a loose sand having an angle of internal friction 30 degree is 1 by 3, 3, 1 or 1 by 2. This is also very easy question. Just think about it. Just think about the formula of it. Can you recall it in your mind? Coefficient of active earth pressure, that is Ka in terms of angle of internal friction. Okay, if you can't recall it, I am putting it here. The formula is K equal to 1 minus sin phi upon 1 plus sin phi, or it can also be represented by tan square 45 plus 5 by 2, but I am writing it like this. Now here, since angle of internal friction is 30 degrees, so sin 30 value is 1 by 2. Now we are putting this value here, 1 minus 1 by 2 upon 1 plus 1 by 2. So the answer that will be obtained is 1 by 3. That is option A will be the correct one. Okay, you just have to memorize this formula. It is very important formula. This can be asked in any question, directly or indirectly. Next question. In hydrometer analysis for soil mass, both meniscus correction and dispersing agent corrections are additive. Both meniscus correction and dispersing agent corrections are subtractive. Meniscus correction is additive and dispersing agent correction is subtractive, or meniscus correction is subtractive and dispersing agent correction is additive. So in this question you should memorize it. This is very important. You should memorize this thing. The answer will be C, that is the meniscus correction. Meniscus correction is additive and dispersing agent correction is subtractive. Keep it in your mind. This is important. Okay. Meniscus correction additive, dispersing agent correction subtractive. 34th question. Clay layer A with single drainage and coefficient of consolidation CV takes 6 months to achieve 50% consolidation. Now the time taken by the clay layer B of the same thickness with double drainage and coefficient of consolidation CV by 2 to achieve the same degree of consolidation is 3 months, 6 months, 12 months or 24 months. Okay, you can pause this video here. You can first of all calculate it and compare it. Now I am going to tell you the solution here. Option A will be the correct answer, that is 3 months. Now time factor formula, that is tau equal to CVT upon H square. In this we can see that tau v depends upon CV, T and H, and in both the conditions it is being said that time factor remains the same. Okay, how it will remain same? Because they are saying that same degree of consolidation, and time factor is depending upon the degree of consolidation only, that is tau equal to pi by 4 u square. In both the cases it is dependent on u, so obviously time factor will remain constant. Now this thing can be compared in both the condition. Now in first condition this CV value is simple CV, and in the second condition this CV value is CV1 by 2, which is being given here. Can you see here? Coefficient of consolidation, that is CV by 2 in the second condition. Now H value, that is H2 is H1 by 2. When it is given, it is being said here that same thickness and double drainage condition. In the double drainage condition the thickness is taken half, in the single drainage it is total thickness has been taken into the account for this question purpose. Now here this H2 will become H1 by 2, and since T1 is 6 months, which is already been given in the question, 6 months is the time for T1. Now T2 we have to determine. Okay, so now comparing CV1 T1 upon H1 square equal to CV2 T2 upon H2 square. So this CV2 can be represented as CV1 by 2 and H2 is represented by H1 by 2. So the solution that comes out here is T1 equal to 2 times of T2. Since T1 was 6 months, so T2 will be half of it, that is 3 months. This will be the answer that can be obtained, and this is important question. This kind of question is asked many a times in examination. This is a very common question from soil mechanics which is being asked. Okay. Next question. Skempton's pore pressure coefficient B for saturated soil is 1, 0, between 0 and 1 or greater than 1. This is just question from Civil Services 95. Now this Skempton's pore pressure coefficient B, this will be having its value for saturated soil condition, that is 1. Okay, memorize it, it is also important. Parameter B is a function of degree of saturation of the soil and equal to 1 for saturated soil and 0 for dry soil. So memorize it. Value of this B, pore pressure coefficient, we have already discussed it in a question, few questions before. So this value, B value is 1 for saturated soil and 0 for dry soil. Always keep it in your mind. This is important question. Okay. Next question. According to IS classification, the range of silt size particle is. We have to find out the silt size particle range. 4.75 mm to 2 mm, 2 mm to 0.425 mm, 0.425 mm to 0.075 mm or 0.075 mm to 0.002 mm. Just think about it. Do you know the range? What will be the answer here? That is option D, that is 0.075 mm to 0.002 mm, that is 75 micron to 2 micron. Okay, let's see the particle size distribution here. For very coarse soil of boulder, that will be having a size of more than 300 mm. For cobble, it will be 80 to 300. Now in the gravel range, coarse gravel will be 20 to 80 mm and fine will be 4.75 to 20 mm, and sand size coarse will be 2 to 4.75 mm, medium 0.425 to 2 mm, and fine will be 0.075 to 0.425. And silt will be having, in the fine soil, silt will be having size range of 0.002 to 0.075 mm, which was the question asked, and clay size will be less than 0.002 mm. Okay, this is very important, memorize it in your mind. Mostly the question asked from this portion. Next question. If the voids in the soil mass are full of air only, the soil is termed as air entrained soil, partially saturated soil, dry soil or dehydrated soil. Now think about it. If the voids in soil mass, that is, it is a kind of dry soil, first of all, because it is not having any water in it. Okay, air entrainment means there will be air entrained inside it, there can be presence of water, but they are saying that this is having, the voids are having only the air. Partially saturated, not possible, and dehydrated is also not possible. It will be only the dry soil. Option C will be the correct one. Okay, because only the air are present in the voids. Moving further, classification of soil is based on particle size composition, plasticity characteristic, both particle size composition and plasticity characteristic, or none of the above. Now classification of soil. Remember, in your mind, the soil are being classified in two ways. First of all, the particle size composition, which we have already discussed in a question, the range of the particle, cobble, gravel, sand, silt, kind of. And another one classification that is based on the index properties of soil, that is dependent on the plasticity characteristic. Okay, so the answer will be option C. That is, the classification of soil is based on both particle size distribution and plasticity characteristic. Now, how it will vary? If this plasticity characteristic, that is the plasticity index, that is liquid limit minus plastic limit, if this value is 0, then the soil type is sand. If this value is less than 7, soil type will be silt. From 7 to 17, that is the silty clay, and more than 17, it will be clay soil. You can find it from the graph of the Atterberg also. I am moving further. Next question. Coarse grained soil are best compacted by drum roller, rubber tire roller, sheep foot roller, or vibrating roller. Now think about it. This is important question, and this is very easy question. You should know it. Think about it. Coarse grained soils are having the larger voids in it, which can be filled by smaller particle size. Okay, and now if you want to place smaller particle size in the space between the coarse grains, so what you will do? If you apply the pressure, it cannot enter into the void. So how it will be obtained? It can only be obtained by the vibration. Okay, so only the vibratory roller, that will be the answer here, which is best compaction way. By using the vibratory roller, the coarse grained soil will be compacted. Okay, sheep foot roller is mainly used for the clay type of soil. Now, vibratory roller is a compactor having a drum, roll or horizontal cylinder used to densify or compact soil through the application of combined static and dynamic forces, that is weight as well as the vibration. Vibration is called as dynamic force here, to increase the load bearing capacity of the surface. Okay, so I have told you the principle of vibratory roller here, and now moving further to next question. 40th question, if the water table rises up to ground surface, then if water table comes to the ground, then what will happen? Effective stress is reduced due to decrease in total stress only, but pore water pressure does not change. Effective stress is reduced due to increase in pore water pressure only, but total stress does not change. Or total stress is reduced to increase in pore water pressure only, but effective stress does not change. Or total stress is increased due to increase in pore water pressure, but effective stress does not change. We have to find out, or total stress is increased due to decrease in pore water pressure, but effective stress does not change. So we have to find out that which will change and which will not change if the water table rises up to ground surface. This question was asked as a first question of this video also, related to this one only. There will be some difference in the question only. So we have to find out if it comes to the surface, then there will be change. There will be change in effective stress. Okay, and effective stress will be changed due to pore water pressure, but the total stress will remain constant. How it is so? Because effective stress is total stress minus pore water pressure. Okay, and since pore water pressure will change, effective stress will change, but total stress, that is the total stress value, will remain constant if the water table comes up to ground surface. If it goes beyond the ground surface, above ground surface, then only there will be change in the total stress. Okay, next question. Constant head permeameter is used to test permeability of silt, clay, coarse sand or fine sand. This is important question. Constant head permeability test is used to find out the permeability of the soil. Now, constant head permeability is used for which kind of soil? Important question. We have to find out permeability in which case. There should not be a cohesion in it, because we will not be able to find out a proper permeability condition of a soil. Okay, so answer will become option C, that is coarse sand. Okay, now a constant head permeability is a laboratory experiment conducted to determine the permeability of soil. The soil that are suitable for the test are sand and gravels. Okay, sand and gravels are preferred. Now, soils with silt content cannot be tested with this method. The test can be employed to test granular soils, either reconstituted or disturbed. For any kind of condition, this test can be performed for only the granular soil. Okay, that is either for the sand or the gravel, both in the coarse condition, not for the fine sand. Okay, so the answer C will be the correct answer here. This is a constant head permeameter. Okay. Next question. The water content of soil, which represents the boundary between plastic state and liquid state, is known as. This is important question. You should know that between plastic state and liquid state, what it is called: liquid limit, plastic limit, shrinkage limit, or plasticity index. Think about it. The boundary line, what it is called? Okay, so the answer is, it is called liquid limit. You can see here in the graph of total volume of the soil mass to the water content. Here we can see that from the liquid state to plastic state, there is a line which is called the liquid limit. Now from plastic state to semi-solid state, the line is called plastic limit. And from semi-solid to solid state, it is called shrinkage limit. Okay, and plasticity index is the difference between liquid limit and plastic limit. Okay. So moving to next question. Which of the following type of soil is transported by gravitational forces? Loess, talus, drift, or dune sand? Dune sand is by wind, you all know, it cannot be possible answer. Loess is also not possible, only from the talus or drift. Which one will be the correct one here? Think about it. Talus will be the correct answer here. Talus are formed due to gravity forces. In mountains and hills on steep slopes, soil creeps down under gravity force due to variation of the moisture content, hence loosening of soil. Such soils are deposited in the lower part of the mountains, that is valley. These are called talus soil. Okay. Next question. If a cohesive soil specimen is subjected to a vertical compressive load, the inclination of the crack to the horizontal is 90 degree, 45 degree, 22.5 degree, or 0 degree. Now in case of the cohesive soil, if it is being taken in the triaxial compression test and there will be a vertical compressive load present on it, then it will fail at which plane? Think about it. It is being observed by the laboratory experiments that it will fail at an angle of 45 degree. Okay, option B will be the correct answer, that is at 45 degree to the horizontal it will fail. This angle will be 45 degree. Okay, next question. Allowable bearing pressure for foundation depends upon allowable settlement only, ultimate bearing capacity of the soil only, both allowable settlement and ultimate bearing capacity, or none of the above. This is also very important question. Allowable bearing pressure for a foundation. This can be determined in two ways. First of all, settlement criteria, and second one is bearing capacity criteria. In these two ways, we can find out the allowable bearing pressure of a soil. So the answer here which will be option C, that is both allowable settlement and ultimate bearing capacity. Okay. Next question. Shear strength of soil is directly proportional to the angle of internal friction of soil, is inversely proportional to the angle of internal friction of soil, decreases with increase in normal stress, or decreases with decrease in normal stress. Now shear strength of the soil, think about it, its relation with normal stress as well as angle of internal friction. How does it change? There is a relation for shear strength of the soil, that is tau equal to C plus sigma tan phi. We can observe one thing here, that is it depends upon the normal stress. Now if we decrease the value of the normal stress, then this will also decrease, this tau value will also decrease. Okay, so the relation that is correct here will be option D. Okay, there should also be a correct answer, that is option A can also be correct. I think in my opinion this answer should also be correct, that is it is directly proportional to angle of internal friction of the soil also, that is this phi, and this is observed from the failure envelope. So option A or D both can be the correct answer here. Moving to the next question. A pycnometer is used to determine the pycnometer. Why we use pycnometer? This is very easy question. Water content and void ratio, specific gravity and dry density, water content and specific gravity, or void ratio and dry density. Think about it. Very easy question. Pycnometer is used only for the two of the test. Think about it. What will be the answer? It will be option C. that is water content and specific gravity. For these two tests we use pycnometer. Okay. Next question, effective stress on soil increases void ratio and decreases permeability, increases both void ratio and permeability, decreases both void ratio and permeability, or decreases void ratio and increases permeability. Now think about it, effective stress comes into the formula of permeability. How it is so? Now think about it a little. With increase in effective stress, if you find out a relation of effective stress and void ratio, you can find out that it is directly related if you think about the coefficient of compression. If it is being kept constant, then there will be a relation between effective stress and void ratio. Now, when we will apply effective stress, if there will be more effective stress, then void ratio will be lower. Okay, so it will decrease the void ratio. First of all, it will decrease the voids in it, which will be the correct one. Now we should think about the permeability. Now if the void ratio is decreased, permeability, remember the Kozny-Kármán equation in which permeability is proportional to E cube upon 1 plus E naught. That is, it will be directly related to the void ratio. Now if the void ratio is being decreased, then obviously the permeability will also decrease from Kozny-Kármán equation. Okay, so effective stress of the soil will decrease both void ratio and permeability. Okay, so answer C will be the correct answer here. Next question, if the plasticity index of the soil mass is 0, the soil is, plasticity of soil mass is 0, then soil is sand, silt, clay or clay sand. We have already discussed it in a question in which we have discussed there were two types of soil classification. First was based on particle size and second was based on index properties, in which I have discussed which type of soil are having what value of plasticity index. Okay, so from that, if you memorize here the plasticity index for the soil, if this value is 0, then the soil is sandy soil. Okay, this we have already discussed, that plasticity index of 0 indicates soil type as sand, and less than 7 it is silt, 7 to 17 silty clay, or more than 70 it is clay. Okay, memorize it. Next question and the last question of this video, the hydraulic head that would produce a quick condition in a sand stratum of thickness 1.5 meter, specific gravity 2.67 and void ratio 0.67 is equal to. This is a question of quicksand condition. We should memorize one formula here for the quicksand condition, that is IC equal to G minus 1 upon 1 plus E. Do you remember it? Think about it. There are options 1 meter, 1.5 meter, 2 meter or 3 meter. You can pause this video and you can calculate it. So I'm going to tell you the solution here. IC is given by G minus 1 upon 1 plus E. G value is 2.67 given here. 2.61 minus 1 and void ratio 0.61, that is 1 plus 0.67. So it will be 1.61 upon 1.67, it will be 1, that is IC value will be 1. Now this IC, that is the critical hydraulic gradient. This value will be hydraulic head upon the thickness of the stratum of the sand. Now thickness of stratum of sand is 1.5, that is L value is 1.5. So this H will become IC into L, that is 1 into 1.5. So this hydraulic head will become 1.5 meter. Okay, so the answer will be B, that is 1.5. So now we will finish this video here at question number 50. In the next video, we will cover question number 51 to 100 in the similar explained manner. Until that, you may subscribe to this channel and download the app for the effective notes of it.